I found the hidden camera she used to sell our life to strangers. What I uncovered next destroyed her world. And mine. My name is Tyler, and for the past 6 years, I thought I was happily married to Brooke. She was everything I had ever wanted. Smart, gorgeous, and with a laugh that could fill a room. From the outside, our life was idyllic. A cozy suburban home, weekend brunches with friends, and dreams of starting a family soon. I worked long hours as a project manager in tech, and Brooke had a thriving career as a lifestyle coach. She claimed she loved the flexibility of her job, saying it gave her time to focus on her passions. I admired her drive and creativity. Little did I know, that very flexibility was masking the dark double life she had been leading. The first crack in the perfect picture appeared a few weeks ago. It was our anniversary, and Brooke insisted on planning a special evening at home. Candles, a fancy dinner, the works. She claimed it was because she wanted something intimate, just the two of us. But as we sat across the candlelit table, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. Brooke kept glancing at her phone, smiling faintly before locking the screen again. When I teased her about it, she brushed it off, claiming she was confirming client updates. Later that night, as I cleaned up the dishes, I found a strange gadget tucked under the couch. A small, sleek device that didn't look like anything I'd seen before. When I turned it on, my confusion only grew. It was a hidden camera. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity, trying to rationalize its presence. Was Brooke using it for her work? Did she need it for some project? Still, a pit formed in my stomach, a feeling I couldn't quite ignore. I decided to confront her. "Hey, Brooke, why is there a hidden camera under the couch?" I asked casually, though my voice trembled. Her reaction was instant and defensive. "Oh, it's for one of my clients. They wanted me to test it for their home security setup," she said with a quick laugh. It sounded plausible enough, but something in her tone, too eager, too rehearsed, made me suspicious. I didn't press further, though. At least not then. That night, as Brooke slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My instincts told me there was more to the story, and for the first time in years, I began to wonder. How well did I really know my wife? The discovery of the hidden camera gnawed at me over the next few days. Brooke acted normal, maybe too normal. She went about her routines, kissed me goodbye every morning, and called me during lunch breaks like nothing was amiss. But her explanations for the camera and her sudden obsession with her phone felt increasingly hollow. Couldn't let it go. On Wednesday evening, when Brooke went out to her yoga class, I decided to investigate. I retrieved the hidden camera from the drawer where I had stashed it and connected it to my laptop. As the device powered on, a few files popped up, videos. My pulse quickened as I opened the first one. It was footage of our living room. But this wasn't just casual home surveillance. The angle was unsettlingly deliberate, capturing a view of the couch and the dining table. I clicked through more files, my stomach tightening with each one. There were recordings of us talking, eating dinner, and even intimate moments. The realization hit me like a brick wall. Someone had been watching us. The next file stopped me cold. It wasn't just us anymore. Brooke was alone in the video, but she wasn't speaking to me. She was addressing the camera, smiling coyly, wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. "All right, gentlemen," she purred. "Welcome to tonight's exclusive session. Let's start the bidding." My mind raced, struggling to process what I was seeing. Bidding? Exclusive session? What the hell was going on? I scrubbed through the video, horrified. She was performing, playing into some fantasy for an unseen audience. And then the chat box overlay popped onto the screen. Names and numbers scrolling as strangers offered bids for. I didn't even know what yet. By the time the video ended, my hands were shaking. My wife wasn't just moonlighting as some kind of cam model. She was running auctions. For what, I wasn't sure, but I intended to find out. The anger burned, but it was nothing compared to the crushing betrayal. How long had this been going on? How could she look me in the eye every day and pretend everything was fine? When Brooke came home that night, I played it cool. I didn't confront her yet. I needed more information. "Yoga went well?" I asked, forcing a smile. Yeah, she said, dropping her bag by the door. Super relaxing. I nodded, studying her face for any sign of guilt or unease. But she was a master at hiding it, her expression as serene as ever. As she went upstairs to shower, I pulled out my phone. If she thought I'd ignore this, she was dead wrong. I didn't know exactly what I was walking into, but I was determined to uncover the full truth, even if it destroyed me. The next morning, I decided to dig deeper. Before Brooke woke up, I carefully slipped her laptop out of her bag and powered it on in the kitchen. She wasn't particularly tech-savvy, which worked in my favor. She hadn't even set up a password. As the desktop loaded, I started searching for anything unusual. It didn't take long. There was a folder buried under layers of subfolders, labeled innocuously as invoices. But when I opened it, it wasn't financial documents or client information. It was videos, hundreds of them. Each file had a name, dinner date, lazy Sunday, anniversary night, and timestamps that spanned the past year. My stomach churned as I realized these were moments from our life, moments I thought were private. The most recent file caught my eye, exclusive_12_23.mp4. The date was from just a few days ago. I clicked it. The footage opened with Brooke sitting on our bed. She looked radiant, but in a way I hadn't seen in months. Excited, alive. Not for me, though. She was staring directly into the camera, her voice sultry as she said, "All right, everyone. Tonight's package is something special. Highest bidder gets access to the full set and, if you're lucky, a live chat." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. What was this package? Who was she talking to? And what exactly was she selling? I scrolled through her browser history, my hands trembling. There it was, a bookmarked link to a site I didn't recognize. I clicked it, and a sleek, password-protected page appeared, displaying the title, Private Pleasures Auctions. It wasn't just a cam site. This was something far worse, a marketplace where users could bid on personalized content, live interactions, and God knows what else. Brooke wasn't just streaming. She was part of a secretive network, monetizing our life in ways I couldn't yet fathom. I closed the laptop and sat back, the weight of my discovery suffocating me. Every laugh, every intimate moment we shared. Had it all been a performance for strangers? I thought of the camera under the couch, the lingering glances at her phone. Everything suddenly made sense. But I wasn't going to confront her yet. I needed leverage. I needed undeniable proof. Later that day, I called in sick to work and reached out to a tech-savvy friend, Mason, who owed me a favor. "I need you to help me trace something," I told him. "Trace what?" Mason asked, skeptical. "A website," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I can't explain yet, but I need to know who's behind it." Mason hesitated. "This sounds sketchy, man. Are you in trouble?" "Not yet," I replied grimly. "But I will be if I don't get answers." By the time Brooke came home that evening, I'd started my plan. I smiled when she walked through the door, kissed her on the cheek, and asked about her day. "Good," she said, slipping out of her shoes. "Busy, but good." I acted like I hadn't spent the day uncovering the double life she'd been hiding. I told myself I needed patience, that if I played my cards right, I could expose everything without her realizing what was coming. Because when I confronted Brooke, I wasn't just going to ask questions. I was going to destroy her entire operation. The following days felt like a slow-motion nightmare. Every interaction with Brooke felt staged, every smile fake. It was all I could do to keep my composure. Meanwhile, Mason had started digging into the website. He called me 3 days later, his voice low and cautious. "Tyler, this isn't just some amateur setup. The site is hosted on a private server overseas. It's encrypted to hell and back. Whoever's running this knows what they're doing. Can you access it?" I asked, pacing the kitchen. "I got in through a back door," Mason said. "But Tyler, you need to see this for yourself." He sent me a link to his private server, where he'd mirrored the site's content. I clicked it and was immediately hit with a wave of disgust. The homepage displayed dozens of thumbnails, each a preview of a package available for auction. Some were as mundane as morning coffee talks, but others were far more explicit. I scrolled until I saw Brooke's profile, her face staring back at me, radiant and confident. She called herself Brelux, and her bio read, "Tailored experiences for the discerning collector. Life is an art, and I'm the canvas." My hands shook as I clicked her profile. A list of recent auctions appeared, complete with descriptions and final bid amounts. Exclusive anniversary package. A romantic evening with a twist. Full set of videos and bonus live session. Sold for $6,700. Sunset Secrets. A private glimpse into her most intimate thoughts. Sold for $4,300. There were dozens of these, each more outrageous than the last. Brooke had been auctioning off curated slices of our life, spinning them into fantasies for strangers. And people were paying obscene amounts of money for the privilege. Mason interrupted my thoughts. It gets worse, Tyler. This isn't just videos and chats. Some of these auctions, they're for in-person encounters. I froze. What? Check the premium listings, he said grimly. I scrolled down and found them, exclusive packages marked with gold stars. One of them was labeled, "Dinner Date with Brelux. Experience the magic in person." It had sold for $12,000. Couldn't breathe. Brooke wasn't just selling videos or interactions. She was meeting these people. While I was at work, while I thought we were building a life together, she was auctioning off time with herself. "Tyler," Mason said carefully, "you need to think this through. If you confront her now, she'll deny everything. You need more than screenshots." He was right. I couldn't just rage at her. I needed evidence she couldn't refute. "I'll set up a tracker," Mason continued. "We can monitor her profile and trace her interactions. But Tyler, are you sure you want to keep digging?" "I don't have a choice," I said, my voice like steel. "I need to know everything." That night, as Brooke sat across from me at the dinner table, chatting about her day, I forced myself to smile and nod. My mind, however, was racing. How long had this been going on? How many strangers had walked through our lives without me knowing? I felt the rage simmer beneath my skin, but I kept it locked away. Brooke didn't suspect a thing. Not yet. But when the time came, I wasn't going to just expose her. I was going to burn her entire world to the ground. Mason's tracker was working better than I could have hoped. Every move Brooke made on the site was logged and sent to me in real time. Over the next few days, I watched as she interacted with bidders, scheduled live sessions, and even finalized details for one of her in-person auctions. The breaking point came when I saw her schedule a private dinner with someone named Astonvale for Friday night. I clicked into the chat logs Mason had captured, my stomach churning as I read. Astonvale, looking forward to Friday. Should I bring something special? Brelux, just your charming self. I'll handle the rest, winking-faced. The confirmation was clear as day. She was planning to meet this stranger while I was at work. I couldn't let it happen. That night, I decided to confront her. When Brooke got home, she was all smiles, talking about her clients and how well business was going. I played along for a while, letting her settle into the illusion that everything was fine. Then, as we sat on the couch, I casually said, "So, who's Astonvale?" Her smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. "What?" she said, laughing nervously. "Who's that?" I leaned forward, staring her down. "Don't lie to me, Brooke. I know about the auctions. I know about the videos. I know about Friday night." Her face turned pale, and her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in weeks, she was at a loss. "I found the camera," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I've seen the site. I've read the messages. So don't waste my time pretending you don't know what I'm talking about." She stared at me for a long moment, and then, unbelievably, she scoffed. "You've been spying on me?" she snapped. "Spying on you?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been selling our private life to the highest bidder, and you're upset that I found out? Are you serious?" "It's not what you think," she said quickly, standing up and pacing the room. "It's just extra income. It's harmless. Harmless. I barked out a laugh. You're meeting strangers for dinners. How the hell is that harmless? She spun around, her face flushed with anger. You have no idea how hard I work to keep us afloat while you play your little corporate games, Tyler. Do you even know how much those dinners pay?
$12,000.
For one night. I froze. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't denying it anymore. She was defending it. Do you hear yourself? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You've turned our marriage into a product. You've made a mockery of everything we built. Brooke crossed her arms, glaring at me. Don't act like some moral high ground hero, Tyler. You work 60-hour weeks and barely notice I'm here. You think I wanted this? I did what I had to do. I shook my head, disbelief and fury swirling inside me. What you had to do? You mean betraying me, lying to my face every single day, and selling your time, and mine, to strangers. She stepped closer, her face hard. You don't get it. You never have. And honestly, I'm not sure you ever will. I stared at her, my heart breaking under the weight of her words. Whatever love I had left for her was drowning in a sea of anger and betrayal. Here's what I do get, I said, standing up and grabbing my coat. You've made your choice, and now I'm going to make mine. I left the house without another word, my mind racing. Brooke thought this was over, that I'd confront her, storm out, and eventually come crawling back. She had no idea what I was planning. I spent the night at Mason's place. He didn't ask many questions, but the look on his face told me he knew things had hit a boiling point. You want to take her down? Mason asked as he handed me a beer. I nodded. She's not going to walk away from this unscathed. Mason sighed, leaning back in his chair. All right then, we need to think bigger. It's not just about her, it's about the entire operation. If you want to hurt her, you expose her and everything she's connected to. We spent the next few hours brainstorming. Mason suggested infiltrating the next live auction to gather irrefutable evidence. It wasn't enough to just show Brooke was involved. We needed to prove she was complicit in something larger. The key was Aston Vale, the bidder she was meeting Friday night. If we could capture their interaction and link it to the auction site, we'd have all the leverage we needed. Here's the plan, Mason said, pulling up his laptop. I'll spoof Aston Vale's IP address and create a dummy account. We'll win one of her auctions, and you'll confront her at the meetup. How do we make sure she doesn't figure it out? I asked, still reeling from the confrontation hours earlier. She won't, Mason said confidently. These guys don't know each other in real life. As long as we outbid Aston Vale, we control the narrative. The plan was risky, but it was all I had. The next day, I called in sick again, unable to face the charade of normal life. Brooke texted me once, asking if I'd be home for dinner, but I ignored her. My focus was on the auction that evening. At 7 p.m., Mason and I logged onto the site under the alias we'd created. Brooke's latest auction was live. An intimate dinner with Brie Lux. One night only. The bidding started at $5,000 and climbed fast. I clenched my fists as strangers tossed out obscene amounts of money, competing for the chance to spend time with my wife. Mason smirked. Pazienza, man. We'll swoop in at the last second. When the timer hit 10 seconds, Mason entered our bid. $15,000. The room went silent. Aston Vale tried to counter, but the clock ran out. The auction was ours. Well, that's one expensive dinner, Mason joked, trying to lighten the mood. I couldn't find it in me to laugh. Minutes later, Brooke's profile sent a private message to our dummy account. Congrats on winning. Let's coordinate the details. The meetup was set for Friday at a high-end restaurant downtown. I stared at the message, my pulse pounding. She had no idea I was the one behind the account. You good, Tyler? Mason asked. Yeah, I said, though my voice betrayed me. But I wasn't good. I was furious. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone willing to sell herself to strangers while I was left in the dark. Now it was time to show her exactly what she'd thrown away. Friday arrived. and with it came a mixture of anger and anticipation that had been building all week. I dressed carefully, not in the casual clothes Brooke had grown used to, but in a sharp suit. I wanted to look calm, composed, ready to confront her betrayal head-on. Mason accompanied me to the restaurant but stayed outside in a parked car with a laptop, monitoring everything. He'd planted a discreet recording device on me earlier in the day to capture every word of the confrontation. "You sure you're ready for this?" Mason asked as I stepped out of the car. "More than ready," I said, my jaw tight. Inside, the restaurant was dimly lit and buzzing with the sound of quiet conversation. I scanned the room until I saw her, Brooke, sitting at a corner table, dressed in a red dress that I'd never seen before. She looked stunning, but all I felt was disgust. She didn't see me at first. She was sipping wine, her eyes occasionally darting toward the entrance, probably expecting Astonvale to show up. I walked over, and as soon as I reached the table, her head snapped up. "Tyler?" she stammered, her face draining of color. "Surprise," I said, pulling out the chair opposite her and sitting down. She looked around nervously, her composure slipping. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said, leaning forward. "You were expecting someone else, weren't you? Someone named Astonvale, maybe?" Her eyes widened, but she quickly masked her panic with anger. "You're following me now? What the hell is wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me?" I asked, my voice calm but icy. "What's wrong with you, Brooke? Selling your time, your body, and our life to strangers? Running an auction behind my back? Do you even realize how insane this is?" She scoffed, leaning back in her chair. "You don't understand. This isn't what you think it is." "Then explain it to me," I said, folding my arms. "Tell me how auctioning off private dinners and intimate videos isn't exactly what it looks like." She hesitated, her mask cracking. "It's just business, Tyler. That's all. I'm not sleeping with them. It's just for show." "For show?" I said, my voice rising. "You think it's okay because you're not physically cheating? You've lied to me, betrayed me, and turned our marriage into a commodity." People at nearby tables were starting to glance our way, but I didn't care. Brooke's eyes darted around the room, her discomfort growing. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. "You're making a scene. You've been making a scene for months," I shot back. "I just didn't know I was part of it." She glared at me, her defenses crumbling. "You don't get it. I've been doing this for us, Tyler. For the money. Do you have any idea how much debt we're in? You're so busy with work, you don't even notice." "Debt," I repeated, laughing bitterly. "That's your excuse? You could have talked to me. We could have fixed it together. But instead, you turned to this." Her face twisted in anger. "I did what I had to do. You wouldn't understand because you've never sacrificed anything for me." Her words hit a nerve, but I kept my expression cold. "You're right," I said, standing up. "I don't understand, and I never will." I turned to leave, but before I walked away, I looked back at her one last time. "Enjoy your dinner, Brooke. Or should I say, Brelux? This is your last performance." I strode out of the restaurant, ignoring the whispers and stares. When I got back to Mason's car, he didn't say a word. He just handed me the recorder. "Everything?" I asked. "Crystal clear," Mason said, starting the engine. We drove away in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over me. Brooke might have thought she could explain her way out of this, but I wasn't done yet. This was only the beginning of her downfall. Back at Mason's place, we played the recording from the restaurant, dissecting every word. Brooke's confession that the auctions were just business, and her excuse of doing it for us, was as damning as I had hoped. "This is solid," Mason said. "She admits to everything. No way she can twist her way out of this." "It's not enough," I said, pacing the room. "She's been part of something bigger, and I want to expose the whole thing. This isn't just about her. It's about every person who's been profiting off this site." Mason nodded. "All right, then we go deeper." The next step was risky, but it had to be done. Mason had traced the website's financial transactions, uncovering a network of payments routed through offshore accounts. It wasn't just Brooke pocketing the money. There were several administrators and collaborators behind the scenes, taking their cut. "They've got encryption," Mason explained, typing furiously. "But no system is perfect. If we can pinpoint one weak link, we can blow the whole thing wide open." I watched as lines of code and data scrolled across the screen. Hours passed as Mason hacked into the site's back end, navigating through firewalls and hidden directories. Finally, he hit pay dirt. "Got it," he said triumphantly. "Their admin hub. Names, email addresses, payment logs. It's all here." My eyes scanned the list of usernames. One name stood out, Briadmin, Brooke's account. She wasn't just a participant. She was working directly with the site's organizers. "Unbelievable," I muttered. "She's been deeper in this than I thought." Mason clicked on her profile, revealing detailed logs of her transactions. There were payments not just for her auctions, but also for referring new users to the platform. She had been recruiting. "This isn't just betrayal," I said, my anger boiling over. "This is criminal." Mason looked up at me, his expression serious. "You're sure you want to do this? Once we leak this, it's over for her. No coming back. She ended our marriage the moment she started this," I said firmly. "It's time she faces the consequences." We spent the next 2 days compiling everything: videos, financial records, chat logs, and the audio recording from the restaurant. Mason helped me create a secure document drop, ready to send to journalists, law enforcement, and even the site's unsuspecting users. But I wasn't going to send it just yet. First, I needed Brooke to know exactly what was coming. On Sunday morning, I walked back into our house, my steps heavy but determined. Brooke was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like it was any other day. She looked up when I entered, her expression a mix of relief and suspicion. "You're back," she said cautiously. "For now," I replied, placing a thick envelope on the counter between us. "What's this?" she asked, her voice wary. "Proof," I said coldly. "Proof of everything you've done. Every auction, every payment, every lie you've told. It's all in there, Brooke." Her hand hesitated over the envelope. "Tyler, I told you, it's not." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "Don't insult me by pretending this is anything less than what it is. You've been running a business behind my back, using our life to line your pockets. And now I have the evidence to end it all." Her face paled as she opened the envelope, flipping through the pages of incriminating documents. "Where did you get this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is what happens next." She looked up at me, her eyes wide with panic. "You're not going to—" "Tyler, please. This will ruin me." "You ruined yourself," I said coldly. "I'm just making sure everyone sees the truth." She reached for my hand, her voice desperate. "We can fix this. I'll stop. I'll shut it all down. Please, just don't do this." I pulled my hand away. "It's too late for that, Brooke. You made your choice. Now you'll live with it." I turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, her perfect little world crumbling around her. That night, I hit send. The document drop went out to every contact on my list: journalists, law enforcement, and even a few key bidders from the site. Brooke had built her empire on lies, and now it was going to burn. By Monday morning, the chaos had already started. The expose I'd sent to a handful of journalists had gone live, sparking a firestorm. Headlines blared: "Underground auction site exposed, private lives sold to the highest bidder," and "Digital scandal. The secrets of private pleasures auctions revealed." The story spread like wildfire. Major news outlets picked it up, dissecting the site's operations and revealing the identities of key players, Brooke among them. At home, Brooke's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts, calls, and emails flooded in as the world reacted to the revelation. She sat in the living room, pale and shaking, clutching her phone like it could save her. "You did this," she said when I walked in, her voice trembling with fury. "I just showed people who you really are," I replied, my tone icy. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she snapped, standing to face me. "My career, my reputation. Everything I've built, it's gone. Everything we built, I corrected her. But you were fine tearing it apart for money. Now you're just reaping what you've sown. Brooke opened her mouth to argue, but the words didn't come. She sank back onto the couch, her head in her hands. For the first time, she looked truly defeated. I left her there, letting her stew in the mess she'd created. But the fallout wasn't confined to Brooke. Later that afternoon, Mason called me, his voice buzzing with excitement. "Tyler, it worked," he said. "Law enforcement is already investigating. The site's administrators are scrambling. They've shut down the platform, but the damage is done. Everyone's been exposed." "What about Brooke?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "She's on the list," Mason confirmed. "Her accounts, her transactions. It's all part of the evidence." For a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt. Brooke's face, her panic and desperation, flashed in my mind. But then I remembered the lies, the betrayals, and the audacity of her defense. "She deserves whatever's coming," I said, my voice firm. The next day, the calls started. Brooke's business clients, her friends, even her family, they all wanted answers. She avoided them at first, but by evening, her parents had shown up at the house, demanding an explanation. "What is this I'm reading?" her mother asked, waving a printout of one of the articles. "It's lies," Brooke said weakly, her voice cracking. "No, it's not," I said, stepping into the room. "It's the truth, and she knows it." Her father turned to me, his face stern. "Is this true, Tyler? Did you send this to the media?" "I did," I said without hesitation. "Because people deserve to know the kind of person Brooke has become." Her mother looked horrified, while her father's expression darkened. "You've destroyed our family's name," he said to Brooke. "How could you do this?" Brooke said nothing, tears streaming down her face. As they left, her mother cast me a pitying glance, but I didn't care. Brooke had made her bed, and now she would lie in it. By the end of the week, the legal fallout began. Brooke received a notice to appear for questioning, and several bidders from the site were also being investigated. The story continued to dominate headlines, and every time I saw her name, I felt a mix of satisfaction and bitterness. She tried to talk to me several times, begging for forgiveness, pleading for a chance to explain. But I couldn't bring myself to listen. "I trusted you," I told her one night as she cornered me in the kitchen. "I loved you, and you sold all of that for a quick buck." "I was trying to fix things," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I said, my voice breaking. "Every time you looked into that camera, every lie you told me, you hurt me. And now it's your turn to feel the pain." She collapsed into sobs, but I didn't comfort her. Couldn't. Because while she had destroyed my trust, I had destroyed her world. And that was the revenge I had planned all along. The backlash hit Brooke faster than I expected. By midweek, her social media accounts were flooded with outrage. Former clients dropped her, issuing public statements condemning her actions. She betrayed her husband and profited off their private moments. One post read, "I can't support someone like that." News crews even showed up at our house, cameras flashing as Brooke scrambled to avoid them. I watched from the living room window, arms crossed. "Tyler, make them go away," she begged, panicked. "You made yourself a spectacle," I said coldly. "Deal with it." Meanwhile, Mason sent me updates on the investigation. The authorities had seized the site servers, and key figures, including Brooke, were being named as accomplices. "She's facing charges," Mason said one night. "They're cracking down hard." I nodded, feeling a grim satisfaction. Brooke had used deception to build her empire, and now it was crumbling. By the end of the week, Brooke was served official papers. The charges included fraud, invasion of privacy, and aiding in the operation of an illegal platform. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the documents, her hands trembling. "Tyler, they're saying I could go to prison," she whispered. I didn't respond. What could I say? She had brought this on herself. Her lawyer called the next day, urging her to cooperate with investigators. If you expose others involved, it might reduce your sentence, he advised. She hesitated but finally agreed. Watching her scramble to save herself only deepened my contempt. The fallout from Brooke's decision to cooperate was immediate. Her name was plastered across headlines again, now as a key informant in dismantling the auction network. Her so-called friends cut ties, labeling her a snitch. Even her family, once supportive, distanced themselves. "You've shamed us enough," her father told her coldly during a tense phone call. At home, Brooke barely left her room. She looked at me with a mixture of desperation and hatred. "You've ruined me, Tyler," she said one night.
No, he replied calmly.
"You ruined yourself." With Brooke's world in shambles, I began rebuilding my own life. I filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. She didn't contest it. She didn't have the energy or resources to fight. I moved into a new apartment, leaving behind the house filled with tainted memories. Brooke stayed, but it didn't feel like she was living anymore. The once vibrant woman I'd loved was now a hollow shell. Meanwhile, Mason updated me on the case. "The network's done," he said. "Most of the admins are facing serious charges, and Brooke's cooperation sealed the deal." I felt a strange sense of closure. Justice was being served, and Brooke was finally paying for her betrayal. The divorce finalized quickly, and with it, I severed all ties to Brooke. The last thing I did before walking out of the house was leave her a copy of the settlement papers and a note. "You made your choices. I just ensured everyone saw them." Her reaction didn't matter to me anymore. As far as I was concerned, this chapter of my life was closed. A month later, I heard from Mason again. "The sentencing came down," he said. "Brooke got a reduced sentence for cooperating, but she'll still serve time." I didn't feel joy or pity, just relief. The woman I'd once loved was unrecognizable, and I had no reason to look back. Months passed, and life slowly returned to normal. I threw myself into work and reconnected with friends, rediscovering the person I'd been before Brooke. One evening, Mason joined me for a drink. "You did the right thing, you know," he said. "Exposing her wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice." I nodded. It was the only way to move forward. Looking back, Brooke's betrayal taught me a harsh but necessary lesson about trust, boundaries, and self-respect. Though the scars remained, I was finally free to rebuild my life on my terms. The past was behind me. The future was mine.